Hello F11 members, welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production video tutorials for issue 23, December 2013, parts 1 and 2. What I'd like to do today is go through some new things actually with you, involving making selections and refining the way we work with layer masks. So what I have here is a winter scene shot in the Yukon, although actually it wasn't winter, it was September, and winter comes early to the Yukon, and you can see there's still autumn colours in the trees there, a lovely subtle scene. And I've done 3 different raw conversions of the same image here for different reasons. One is for the midtones. One is for the this one over here on the left for the highlights, and one for the bottom part of the image, the reflections. Now what I want to do is just fine-tune how I'm going to piece these pictures together to bring out the very best in this picture, and it's going to be quite an interesting exercise. And what's important, as always, is thinking through what you're doing, not trying to just do things randomly hoping they'll work. It's all about working in a very logical way. So let's get started. Now, looking at these pictures, there doesn't seem a huge difference between the one on the left and the one in the middle. The one on the left has been processed with this bright area of snow here and here in particular in mind, and the one in the right is the nearest to the one on the right has a lot of burning out of the highlights here. And what I want to do is just start building up the layers so that we can then work on individual sections of the picture. As always, I'll paste on top of the brightest, and we're getting increasingly dark as we go up. And so what I want to do is take this image and put it on top of this one as a layer, and then apply a mask so we can see the bits coming through that we want to, in particular the bottom portion of the image here, the water. So if I go here and I go select all, edit, cut, and then onto the lighter image here and edit, paste. Now of course there are keyboard shortcuts to do that, but as usual, there's many ways to skin a cat. I'm now finished with that picture, so I can close it. I don't need to save the changes. And what we have now, if I bring the layers palette into the window here, what I have is the medium tone layer on top of the brighter one. If I click the eye on and off, you can see the brighter one underneath. What I want to do now is apply a selection so that I can see what I want to of the layer underneath. So I'm going to use, we have in the past in these video tutorials used the lasso tool a lot, which is very useful, but today I'm going to introduce you to another option, and that's the quick selection tool. Now if I just to give you an idea of how it works, and I'd suggest you practice with this, just select the tool and then start moving your cursor over the area that you want to select, and just like that it makes a guess at what you're trying to select. Pretty clever, isn't it? Now it's taken a bit more than I want up here, so if I come up here and I go to minus, click on that, and then I can just push it back, push the edge back in the areas that I want to, so that it's just taken the bright bit of the water. That's really what I want. Okay, we don't have to be massively accurate with this, but I'm going to feather that selection, and I introduced you to actions last time, and so let's use one. I have a selection here. The line is pretty defined, so I'm going to use a feather radius of only 30 pixels, and this is an action I've made before. So if I just play that action, then let's bring that up there. So if I just play that action, I've now feathered that edge, and what I want to do is, it's selected the actual area that I want to see, so I'm going to go select inverse, and now if I go layer mask and reveal the selection, what we have now is the darker layer on top of the white, lighter layer, but the mask is allowing me to see through to the lighter frame underneath. Okay, so that's pretty good. Next thing I want to do is take the darker image, move those out of the way for a minute, this one here, the darker image, and paste it on top of those two layers. So go back to actions, and because I do this so often, what I've made an action, and it's called layer mask in the set, and there's an action called select all, cut and close. You see what I did before was go up, select all, and then edit, cut, and then paste, and then close. Well, essentially I can do all that just with one click using an action that I've made. So if I go select all, cut and close, that's exactly what it does. I now have that image, and if I could just go Control V, it pastes that layer on top. There it is. Now I need to apply a mask again, and this time think through. Always stop, take time to evaluate what you're doing and think. And what I'm doing is I just want to see if this mask, this layer, the brightest bit of snow here on the right. Okay, so I go to this layer, and using my quick selection tool again, I'm just going to select that sort of area of snow. Fine tune that selection. It's taken a bit more than I need, so let's just move it back a bit. It's been a bit greedy. Oh, gone too far there. It's alright, go back, plus, take this out to about there. Pretty good, eh? Very clever tool. Don't know how it works, but there you go. I'm going to feather that selection again, just a feather 30 pixel radius this time. And now I go up to layer mask and reveal selection. So there you have it. I have my three layers. I have on the top just a tiny layer just for that bit of snow on the right. I now have the middle layer, which is for the top of the frame, and the bottom layer, which is for the water. So I'm now going to start fine-tuning each layer until I get the look I want. So working from the bottom, the water, image adjustments, curves here, and I'm looking at that, and it just looks a bit dingy, a bit flat. So click that box, show clipping, and now if I move my white point to the right, I can see where I'm likely to be losing detail, and predictably the first bit is on the snow on top of those rocks. Nevertheless, I can go that far without losing any information. Let's just unclick that box and see the effect it's having. If I go way past that white point, I'm going to actually ignore these white bits here, because I can use the mask from this layer. I can adjust the mask from this layer to take care of those bright bits of white there on the darker tone there. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to ignore the clipping that's happening in that bit of snow there, and just come into about there, and where I start to see some clipping happening here. Okay, let's just see the effect of that, and I'm getting a better range of tones in the water than I was before. Click that again. Now let's just see if I can adjust black point at all. Not really, not without losing detail in those rocks, so I'm happy with that. And then finally just a bit more contrast here, and I'm going to do the S on the tone curve to achieve that. And my tones in the water here are pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so there's a bit of fine tuning to be done, but we're getting there. So I'll go OK with that and come next to the middle layer and select that middle layer, and now do exactly the same. Image adjustments, curves, and look at my clipping first of all. A little bit of scope, not much at all on the white point without losing any information, and but with the black point I can go quite a way in on that. What effect is that having? Putting a bit of contrast in there. It's a little bit dark, so I'm going to adjust the tone curve to take into account that. I want a high key image, you know, just a bit of an S in there, and that's got some nice life to it. Maybe a little bit too bright. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'll go OK. And now finally this area of snow here on the left looks a bit dingy, so I do the same. Image adjustments, curves, and I'm just going to go adjust the white point and just give it a bit of tone. I didn't want it burning out, but at the same time I don't want it looking like grey snow. So where do I go with it? There you go. Not bad, eh? At this stage I look at the whole image and think it's pretty much getting where I want it to be, but we're actually still on the back down here in the water. That white here that I clipped, I'm now time to take care of that. So if I go back to the top layer and select the mask, what I want to do is just paint in here to put a bit of tone into those skies, using the mask, adjusting the mask so I can basically see through, use some of this darker tone from the top layer to fill in detail here. So what I'm going to do is go up on my magnification, and now using the paintbrush here, I can adjust my brush size using the bracket keys on my keyboard, left, up or down. About that. Opacity, take that right down. We want it to be oh so subtle, and I want to be painting in white so that the mask is applied there. So I come down here and using my X keyboard swap that to white, so the top color is white. And now if I start painting in here, you'll start seeing the effect. It's very subtle. If I go up on the opacity, you'll see it much more. You see, that's too much. So I'm just going to, using history, go back on that, take the opacity back down, and just very subtly paint in a bit of tone there. So you see what I'm doing? The top layer is the darkest, and I'm actually applying a mask so that the top layer, the darker tone of the top layer, is being seen through and affecting those snowy bits. Right then, at this stage I can look at the whole picture and ask, where am I with it? and really aesthetically it's there, and I'm pretty much finished with my layers. But there's some things that I'm not happy with in particular. I left in just the bottom of the frame here, this detail here, and there's some bits and pieces around here that I may or may not choose to include in the shot. And also I need to take out footprints over here in the snow. So we're going to do that in part 2 of this video tutorial.